Congratulations, true crime addicts. We've survived another week. It is Friday, March 28th, 2025. This week, a genetic genealogy database has gone bankrupt. Who let Andrew Tate back into the U.S.? And Big Brother comes to London. All this and more. Stay tuned.
Yes. Super excited. We are all pumped to have James Renner.
James Renner on.
That James Renner has zeroed in on.
James Renner once again drops a bombshell.
Investigative journalist, reporter, James Renner, who's been on the podcast, longtime friend of mine.
And welcome back to True Crime This Week with me, your host, James Renner. Hey, thanks for coming back. Every Friday morning, I bring to you the true crime stories that you might have missed during the week. It's a roundup of the true crime stories that fell through the cracks, and we've got lots to talk about this week. But first, just a couple, placeholder, little business to take care of. Just a reminder that my new true crime book, Scout Camp, is now available as a hardback, as an audiobook, as a Kindle, whatever your flavor, however you take it, mainstream it, I don't know. But on Amazon, your local bookseller is probably the best place for it, though. So check it out, Scout Camp. And a reminder, I will be attending CrimeCon UK in London in June. That's June 7th and 8th. And if you're over in Blighty, over across the pond, and you want to attend, but you want to save a little bit, I've got a code for you. Type in, as you're getting your tickets, when it asks for a code, use Renner10. You'll get 10% off your tickets. And hope to see you at CrimeCon. As always, I want to thank my buddy Walter for manning the camera. Walter's just back from texting state secrets over Signal. So glad to have you back, Walter. Let's get to the top stories. Let's not mess around anymore. Let's jump. It's a big week. Let's jump in. On Monday, genetic testing company 23&Me announced that it had filed for bankruptcy protection, according to Science News. And while everyone is freaking out about their personal data going up for sale, this development might turn out to be good news for cold case detectives in the United States, if it plays out right. When police used genetic genealogy to identify the Golden State Killer, one of the most prolific serial killers in history, in 2018, police were suddenly given a new powerful tool to solve old homicides. Now, if detectives have DNA from a crime scene, they can compare their suspect's genetic profile with the profiles of millions of people on public databases like GEDmatch and Family Tree. This new technology has solved hundreds of cases in the last several years. 23&Me has never shared the genetic data of their users with law enforcement for these purposes, which is frustrating for those people that are trying to solve these crimes, because they hold the profiles of as many as 15 million possible matches. Instead, 23&Me prefers to share their data with scientists who have been researching diseases like cancer, something we can all get behind, right? But if they were suddenly to sell that information to a new company, which typically happens in these forms of bankruptcies, we will see many more cold cases solved practically overnight. Since the announcement of their bankruptcy, major news media outlets like the New York Times and NPR, as well as the Attorney General of California, have called for users of 23&Me to delete their data before any sort of sale. It's got a lot of people afraid. What are they going to do with my genetic information? Oh my God, I got to delete it. Although I'm not sure how, they're already entering into bankruptcy and you delete your app and you ask to delete your data. I'm not convinced that'll actually get deleted on their end. I don't know, but it's got a little, people are afraid. But as someone who works in this field, I can tell you that doing so is pretty much a pointless exercise. I run a nonprofit here in Ohio. It's called the Porchlight Project. We raise money for new DNA testing and genetic genealogy for cold cases in Ohio. Our work has helped solve murders and identify John and Jane Does. And as we continue to fund more cases, I've gotten to know the industry from the inside out. And here's something I've realized. Soon, if it hasn't happened already, we will be able to identify pretty much everybody in these genetic databases. Even if you opt out at this point, your identity will still be connected to the system if your son or cousin or great aunt has already uploaded theirs. Even if you've never used one of these companies, your name is likely already listed on some kind of ancestral family tree that can be viewed and used by law enforcement. The window of time we had to stop this is about 10 years ago, 10 years in the past. We're far beyond that. My only fear is that the data inside 23&Me might be sold to a foreign power like China, because there is evidence suggesting that China is using these public databases in an effort to identify spies inside their country who are using fake names and identification to remain undercover. But if they sold to Family Tree or some outlet that does cooperate with law enforcement, I think it's only a good thing. Not only will it continue to help in the effort to understand and eradicate genetic diseases, it will also solve many of our most famous cold cases. Personally, I actually have an account with 23&Me, and I'm not deleting the data, not because I'm brave or anything, but because I really do think it's entirely pointless. If the NSA doesn't already have it, I firmly believe that there will be very soon, there will be a complete searchable family tree of every soul on this planet. And I think the good outweighs the bad with something like that. Not only will it help solve these crimes, it will show how we're all connected, how we're all part of the same big family. And perhaps, maybe, it will make it just a little bit harder to be cruel to each other. Social media influencer and king of misogynists Andrew Tate is in the news again. A woman named Bry Stern has filed a sexual assault report against Tate, alleging that he choked her to the point of unconsciousness after she said stop at the Beverly Hills Hotel on March 11th, according to Vibe. If you're just hearing about this guy, Andrew Tate, right now, let me get you up to speed. Tate is a 38-year-old bald-headed Chad of a man who gained 9.9 million followers on Twitter. He's a former kickboxer. Tate also ran a popular pornographic webcam business and is quoted as saying, quote, "I had 75 women working for me in 4 locations and I was doing $600,000 a month from webcam. My job was to meet a girl, go on a few dates, sleep with her, test if she's quality, get her to fall in love with me, and then get her on webcam so we could become rich together." He also likes to say that women belong to men. Part of his business were tutorials teaching other men how to do this, do the things he does, a service he referred to as pimping hose degree. Tate's lifestyle caught up with him, though, in 2022 when Romanian police raided his home, the home of him and his brother. They lived together. And after a report that an American woman was being held against her will there. During the raid, authorities actually found 4 women who claimed they were being held there. Police arrested Tate and 2 others and charged him with human trafficking and rape. So how did Tate enter the U.S. after all of that? Well, they have a lot of friends in the Trump administration. Elon Musk recently restored Tate's social media account, and one of Tate's lawyers now works as White House liaison to the U.S. Justice Department. So after Trump got into office, Tate's travel ban was lifted. After Bree was choked out, the woman Tate allegedly assaulted there visited an emergency room and was diagnosed as post-concussive. And TMZ has received alleged text in which Tate admits to abusing her. Tate's lawyers say the woman was just mad that he didn't fly her to New York City on his private jet. As Tate continues to travel around the world and allegedly assault women, the cases against him continue. Last year, police in England began civil proceedings against him for tax evasion, and Romanian police expanded their investigation to include trafficking of minors and money laundering. I don't think this guy's. I think he might be a bad guy. If I'm reading into this right, I think this Andrew Tate is no good. Big Brother is coming to London. The London neighborhood of Croydon is set to get the first permanent live facial recognition scanner soon, according to Metro. These cameras scan faces and match features to photographs stored in criminal databases. and alert police, who then come in for the arrest. Croydon is in the south of London and has become a violent hotspot, racking up 10,000 violent crimes last year. It was also the site of the 2023 stabbing death of 15-year-old Elian Andam. Once the cameras go up, Croydon will become the first neighborhood of any democratic country in the world to use facial recognition scanners on a permanent basis. And human rights groups are understandably concerned. After all, the identification of potential criminals using this technology is determined not by a human, but by a computer algorithm, which is not without flaws. Recently, a man named Sean Thompson was flagged as a wanted man by temporary scanners outside London Bridge Station. He was held by police for almost 30 minutes, despite providing identification that proved he was not the man they were looking for. Still, police in London believe the benefits outweigh the intrusion of privacy and claim they've made 500 arrests thanks to the technology. Meanwhile, residents of Croydon suspect it won't be much help, as many of the local riffraff prefer to wear masks when committing their crimes. Also, I don't think there's any way those cameras won't mistake Natalie Portman for Keira Knightley the next time she's in London for a movie. Let's hope that Keira Knightley doesn't stab anybody in the meantime. Those are the top stories of this week. I will be right back with updates in some cold cases and a weird news story that will keep you up at night. All this and more, I'll be back in 2 and 2.
Please hang up and try again.
And we're back with more True Crime This Week, brought to you by Kmart. Love where you live. Gerard Depardieu, the French actor known for his roles in The Count of Monte Cristo and The Man in the Iron Mask, and apparently last seen at a McDonald's, is on trial this week in Paris, and prosecutors are requesting an 18-month suspended sentence for sexual assault, according to Deadline. They're also asking that the 77-year-old Depardieu undergo psychological treatment and be placed on a sex offender list. Depardieu is accused of assault by a set dresser, an assistant director from a film called The Green Shutters. The set dresser alleges that Depardieu grabbed her breasts and growled, quote, "Come touch my big parasol. I'm going to shove it up your pussy," end quote. Look, I'm no pickup artist, but I don't think that line has ever worked in the history of people. For anybody other than Roman Polanski, maybe. If convicted, Depardieu could be given up to 5 years in jail and forced to star in a Tyler Perry movie. A panel in Texas denied the first attempt at parole for Yolanda Saldivar yesterday, according to the New York Times. Saldivar was the woman who murdered singer Selena at a Corpus Christi Days Inn on March 31st, 1995. If you're unfamiliar with the legend that is Selena, first of all, how dare you? But Selena was a 23-year-old singer who was just rising to international fame when she was shot to death by Saldivar, a 34-year-old registered nurse who had founded Selena's fan club, but was fired after getting caught embezzling money. Selena popularized the Tejano sound, a blend of Mexican and European polka and guitar music. She became the first Tejano artist to win a Grammy in 1993, and her album sold 400,000 copies in the United States. When Selena visited Saldivar at the hotel in Corpus Christi, Saldivar shot her in the back with a .38 caliber revolver and then engaged police in a 10-hour standoff. As part of their ruling, the parole board stated that, quote, "the offender poses a continuing threat to public safety," end quote. She'll get another try at about 5 years. The New Hampshire Attorney General's office has identified the skeletal remains found on a golf course in Derry. They say it belongs to missing 23-year-old Amanda Grzuski, according to the New York Post. Every time human remains are found in New Hampshire, people immediately speculate that it could be Maura Murray, and every time they've been wrong. The remains were actually found by a drone pilot who was searching the woods around the golf course after police received a tip regarding her disappearance. Amanda suffered with addiction issues and was last seen leaving a friend's home not far away on March 17th, 2020, leaving behind her purse and a phone. Her mother believes foul play is involved. Hopefully there was some evidence found with the remains that will help them figure that out for sure. The fourth victim of a serial killer who preyed on homeless First Nations women in Winnipeg was identified this week as 30-year-old Ashley Shingoose, who went missing in 2022, according to the CBC. 38-year-old Jeremy Skibicki was convicted last July on 4 counts of murder. His other victims were also First Nations women who were murdered between March and May 2022. That would be 39-year-old Morgan Harris, 26-year-old Mercedes Moran, and 24-year-old Rebecca Contois. Ashley's body had been placed in a garbage bin and ended up in a landfill. The Indigenous women of Manitoba are particularly vulnerable to crime and often overlooked by law enforcement, but their efforts to identify Ashley and hold Skibicki accountable are a big step toward attention and accountability at last. Let's jump over to weird news, shall we? So this next story is sure to give us all nightmares. On Monday in Barton County, Kansas, a babysitter was watching over a young child, having a good time, playing around, and at the end of the day, they put the child to bed. So far, so good. Short time later, though, the child went to the babysitter and told her there was a monster under her bed. So the babysitter does what all good babysitters do and checks under the bed for monsters. Except this time, there really was one. When the babysitter looked underneath, they discovered 27-year-old Martin Villalobos had crawled under the child's bed, according to NBC News. Martin scrambled out and got into an altercation with the babysitter before fleeing the scene. He was gone by the time the sheriff's office arrived, but was arrested the next day and charged with aggravated kidnapping and burglary. Details are still unclear, but he had apparently lived in the house at some time in the past. He's currently being held on a $500,000 bond and has already been offered a job at Monsters, Inc. Now on to pop culture. Everybody's talking about this new documentary, A Body in the Snow, featuring Karen Reed, who's about to go on trial again for the death of her boyfriend, Boston police officer John O'Keefe. Here's the write-up. This exclusive behind-the-scenes docuseries tells the story of murder defendant Karen Reed and the controversial trial that has divided a town. Divided a town? More like a civil war out there. This case divides not just Boston, but the true crime podcasting world. And there's also kind of a war going on Twitter and social media where podcasters take sides and they war against each other, blah, blah, blah. It's between those who believe Karen purposefully backed her SUV into O'Keefe and left him for dead, and those who believe that Karen is just a scapegoat and that there's a cover-up and the real killers are members of the police family who own the property where O'Keefe's body was found. Personally, I'm in the Karen is innocent camp. Go team. But check it out and let me know what you think. The true crime book of the week this week is just out. Came out on Tuesday. It's called Story of a Murder. The Wives, the Mistress, and Mr. Crippen. And by Hallie Rubenhold wrote it. It's an exhaustingly researched book, and it's a big one too, of an old scandalous murder and should be appealing to true crime addicts looking for a twisty tale. Here's the write-up. In this epic examination of one of the most infamous murders of the 20th century, best-selling author of The Five, Hallie Rubenhold gives voice to those who were never properly heard, the women. On February 1st, 1910, the vivacious, diamond-adorned music hall performer Belle Elmore suddenly vanished from her home, causing alarm among her friends, the entertainers of the Music Hall Ladies Guild. Their demands for an investigation would lead to the unearthing of a gruesome secret and trigger a fevered international manhunt for Belle's husband, medical fraudster Dr. Holly Harvey Crippen. Ethel Leneve, Crippen's typist and lover, who fled with Crippen in disguise, has always hidden in the shadows of this tale. Was she really just an innocent young girl enthralled to a powerful older man? And was there an equally sinister story behind the death of Crippen's first wife, Charlotte? Brimming with twists and featuring a carnival cast of eccentric entertainers, star lawyers, zealous detectives, medics, and liars. Story of a Murder, offers an electrifying snapshot of Britain and America at the dawn of the modern era. This is a book for folks who like Devil in the White City, those books that delve into really old crime and get in deep with the characters of the story. So check it out, A Story of a Murder. Yeah. And that's the show for this week. I'll be back next Friday morning as always, and in the meantime, go out and enjoy the weather. It's finally getting a little warm here in Ohio. And in the words of the incomparable Murray Saul, the godfather of Cleveland radio, we gotta get down, damn it. True Crime This Week is a Fearful Symmetry production. Photo and artwork are licensed through Shutterstock. If you like the cut of my jib, I have another podcast you might enjoy called The Philosophy of Crime, in which I attempt to solve the big questions behind our true crime obsession by looking to philosophy for answers. Thank you for listening. I'll see you next week. Sit, Brownie, sit. Good dog.